I'm thinking about how where competitiveness comes from, where because I observe myself and I observe other people at times. There's times in my life where I don't give a fuck what anyone else is doing. I don't fucking care. I'm good on my own. I feel like I am the most capable, like I'm the biggest source of energy in my own life. I'm my source. And everything and everyone that I meet is kind of just like an inspiration, or they trigger something in me, or I don't like see people as like my competition, like I have to compete with them or take what they have, or like I couldn't do my own version of what they inspire me to do. And then sometimes I get into situations and mindsets where I think I've been convinced that there's a competition, there's a lack of resources, there's a lack of love to go around. I'm inherently incapable, and that if I want something, I have to, or if I want someone, I have to compete. I have to fit a different standard other than what I am. I have to become someone that I'm not and mold myself into a competition and a ranking, and I have to make sure I destroy other people so that I can win. And I live in a very small, fearful little inner world. And then I observe myself. It's like an expand and contract of energy. And I think, so what happens in those phases of life where it's basically like I go from knowing that I'm my own source, that I'm capable of really incredible things, that like I'm fucking magical and there's no one else like me, and that's an advantage, and I don't feel like I have any enemies. I don't really care. I see other people as being their own source, and them being themselves, and them being so unique and irreplaceable, and it doesn't threaten me. I feel more generous. And then those phases of life where I think everyone is my fucking enemy. If another bitch has something that I want, then fuck her. I want to kill her. I want to destroy everyone else. The only way for me to win is to destroy everyone. Somewhere along the line, I started competing for something. I started thinking I need to be number one in something. And then I think mostly this comes in the form of relationships, thinking that someone could steal my man or something, or that there's a ranking. And I think I have a lot of female clients, and a lot of them are like this too. And I think about, what is the actual energy dynamic that happens when we go from being our own source and being literally life-giving? Because women are so fucking powerful. The womb is so fucking powerful, but not just the womb, just like life force. We're all just so fucking powerful in our own right. And there is no competition. If we're not exactly the same as someone else, and we literally aren't their identical twin and have no separation in life experience, If you weren't the exact same weight that your birth twin was, you are having a different life experience. The playing field was never even. So realistically, we can't compete with anyone when it comes to just life, because we all started in different situations. So therefore, any competition would always be rigged and it would always be unrealistic. So there's really no such thing as legitimate competition. Every competition we ever get in would be rigged. And I started thinking about women get this way a lot when it comes to competing for a relationship, competing for a man. And I think the root of all lack consciousness and competition, and thinking that there's a spot or a position or a title you have to compete for, like being someone's wife, or for men, being someone's husband, or having, I think for men a lot of times it's competing for a certain title. When did we sacrifice ourselves and our own individuality and who we truly are? When did we sacrifice that and think that we have to compress our entire being and distort our entire being into fitting into a ranking, a made-up ranking at that? Like, I think how people get so fucking aggressive over sports. It's not even real. When did we compress our entire self and sacrifice ourselves to fit into a title of wife or manager, and see other people as competition, when realistically out in the natural world, how can I fucking compete with you when I'm not you? I didn't start in the same situation as you, so I can't compete with you. It's not fair. It's rigged. So why would I even compete? It's not it's not organic either. And I think a lot of the times, this is what I'm kind of getting at. We get the most competitive when it comes to little competitions and made up social milestones and expectation society and everyone has of us. We get the most fucking competitive and even bloodthirsty. And I'm definitely not exempt from this too, because sometimes if I want to compete with someone, I want to fucking kill you. And I mean it. So the things that we get the most competitive about are the things that also make us feel the most ashamed. So like when people compete for a job position, I think the people who compete the hardest and get the most vicious about it are the people who are the most ashamed or have been shamed the most for their social status or their socioeconomic status or their lower rung on the corporate ladder. They've internalized the most shame about it, so they feel like they're in the most deadly competition ever. I think it's because shame, the energy frequency of shame is so heavy, and it'll deplete the nutrients out of your body, so you'll literally be close to death. So I think that's why people handle it the way they do. And with women get so... I just turned 28. So it's... Sometimes I get sucked into these... just the energy that's circulating around people, like women my age who are getting married. The energy dynamic will get deadly. Like if I try to even think about their man, it'll feel like a psychic battle, like a life or death battle. And I think, why are women like this? And I think, oh, because of the history of marriage being something that is so fucking terrible for women. All throughout history, women would be seen as property. There's so much domestic abuse and rape rape and women being seen as ownership and women not being able to work, and there's so much generational trauma. Like, so women are blamed for everything, even though they're doing all the work that builds a man up into who he is, because we live in a very sexist world, and women are seen as slaves, domestic slaves, and yes, they are. And women get the shortest end of the stick possible when it comes to marriage, especially when we look at things all throughout history. And familiarity breeds contempt, so you being someone's wife is like dangerous for you. Even statistically, the most dangerous moments in a woman's life is when she is alone with a man who she knows, not a stranger man, like a man that who she feels like she knows. And so I think, why do women get so goddamn fucking like it's war when it comes to marriage? Because we've internalized the burden of shame around that. I had a bitch siphon my fucking fertility energetically because she was competing with me. Ooh. And so I was kind of visualizing in my mind, what happens? Why do we go from being the most powerful source of energy and life force that we have access to, and everyone is their own greatest source? How do we go from that to competing, putting our fucking life on the line, either spiritually or physically, and competing for something as degrading as a title of someone's wife or a manager? Like, who fucking cares? It's not shit. And you're better off probably not having it. And I visualize the way that energy works. It's like we have this source of, we are this source of energy. We generate energy. Even if we're depleted from energy, we're depleted of energy, it regenerates. We have access to healing. We have access to things that they would consider miraculous. We're literally sources of life, constantly renewing ourselves. But if we have been, and so we're very valuable, but if we have been shamed or we've experienced a trauma, like when I think of molestation, sexual life force is so fucking powerful. But if, say, for example, you were molested or you were raped or something, there's now a trauma overlay. Like when people who read people's auras say that trauma tends to have like a red tone, it's like an overlay over someone's chakras. It's like an overlay over someone's chakras. It's like there becomes like layers over free-flowing natural life force that we all have access to. We all have our own unique version of it. So when someone has experienced a trauma or they'll come to associate their own life force, like in this case sexual energy, they'll come to associate that with trauma is a naturally co-occurring experience, that you can't just have free-flowing life force, and it's risky to have your own free-flowing self-generating life force because there has been a trauma associated with it. So then we internalize shame and responsibility for it to try to keep ourselves safer. And so there's like a third layer. There's like a third overlay now blocking the free flow and free generation of life force. There's the overlay of trauma, which we confuse as being merged with the life force itself. So we'll think that being in our own experience of life is inherently traumatizing. And then there's a third layer that goes over the original life force that we generate of shame. And when I see this as a color, it feels like shame has like a grayish black tone to it. So now the free flow of life force and vitality and all these things that we naturally have access to, like intelligence, creativity, miraculous healing powers, all this stuff, it's now distorted by an overlay of trauma and an overlay of shame. So it's like, and then we develop all of these addictions and coping mechanisms and crutches that manifest in our real life, like drug addictions or codependency or things that are supposed to keep us safe. Like I have a shopping addiction. And all these things disrupt the natural flow of life force. Because we've associated life force itself with being inherently risky and inherently traumatizing, like a magnet for unwanted experiences. And then because we are now our life force and our natural energy, and kind of like the infinite nature of it, the infinite nature of even our soul, we think because it's compressed and muddied up by trauma and shame and addictions now and bids for safety or just all this other stuff and all these roots and attachments that then get connected to us. Our life force won't flow as freely. So we think now that it's a limited resource. Like I work with a lot of older women. Technically, physical fertility does end. But women have been so, at least the women that I've worked with, I just had a client yesterday who said one of her ex-husbands held a machete to her. And I told her, damn, do you have PTSD? And she said, yes. But I think of the case of women when it comes to sexuality or creative energy, because it's the same thing. Women's sexuality is inherently creative and very powerful because it has the ability to create life, like nurture it and incubate it and create it and give birth to it. It's the same with creativity, with artistic abilities. When women have been forced into male-centered religions, which is inherently traumatizing for a woman and puts us in the role of slave, or a property or hostage, and then a lot of the women that I worked with who are older have had really scary marriages, and then they're traumatized and forced to repress womanhood and see female sexuality as a danger and not like the most powerful source of energy ever. Then they become, quote unquote, conservative and very judgmental, and they compete with other women all the time. Like, even the client that I'm about to see right now, when she sees a woman on the TV who's young and fertile, but she has a skirt that doesn't look right, she just shames the fuck out of her. I think it's because we get trained that our life force that we naturally have access to is not safe to be in. It's not safe for us to be the epicenter of our own life. And then because of the overlays of trauma and shame, and then addictions and trying to hide and protect yourself while still internalizing the shame and the trauma, so you're protecting it too, life force can't flow as freely, and then it can kind of atrophy, or we can deny it all the time. And then that's like in the form of not taking responsibility for the things that have manifested in your life. Because it's confusing, because you can't be responsible for it because there was an event that you weren't responsible for, but you're still internalizing it in your energy field. Then life force becomes smaller, and then we think that we don't have, that we're losing power. We question if we ever had it, and then we think that power comes from outside of us, especially if we've had addictions for a long time. Like, we need this addiction to give us energy and power because we don't actually have it. And then I think this is where a lot of competitiveness is bred. I think in some situations, a lot of times, I think competitiveness is a manifestation of early childhood sibling rivalry. But I'll do another video about that. But I think all competition comes from feeling like there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of love. There's a lack of time. There's a lack of attention. Like if you had a bunch of siblings, there's a ranking of which sibling is the most important, a made up ranking that doesn't exist in the natural world. We think there's a lack of money. There's a lack of respect to go around. This is why people compete so much for these higher up career titles. But if you go out and sit in the forest, no one gives a fuck if you're the manager, CEO, doctor, whatever the fuck. No one fucking cares. The leaves don't give a fuck about it. Trees don't give a flying fuck. And the forest, nature is life force. It's where everything was coming from. But when we convince ourselves that we don't have access to energy, we can't generate it ourselves, and we're trying to dissociate from the trauma and the shame and like our past experiences in life that had a deep impact on us and mutated our perspective, while still holding them in our energy field and identifying with them, like the trauma and the shame that's basically blocking your original core life force. We'll start to think that we don't have energy, that other people are our competition, that since we aren't vital, we aren't the most important source of energy ever. Instead of competing for our own survival and our own existence, we'll be competing for a job title. We'll be competing for a fucking marriage. And all the shame, the generational shame and all the shit that comes with that. We'll go from knowing that we are the most powerful thing we have access to thinking we need to give a fuck about whether there's a bunch of letters under our name on our desk title. Like my name that I didn't even give myself at birth. My name that all my abusers called me. My name that's been used to command me around. Oh, I need to sacrifice my entire life to make sure I have that PhD, blah, 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 ZZ, 1, 2, 3 behind it. And so I think it's only natural that then we would become very competitive in general. We become very jealous. Because everything would feel too close for comfort because you're holding so much in your energy field, so much internalized shame, so much responsibility for previous traumas. And then we become very susceptible to hierarchical structures because of this. The less power we think we have, or the more cut off our free-flowing expression of life force and our ability to generate energy and our ability to command things like our being ourselves, we will think we don't have natural power or we don't deserve it. So we will become overly susceptible to outside representations of power. We'll look outside of ourselves for what everyone else has decided is power, like money. We'll kill people for money. Or marriage being someone's property or a job title or something. I think this is why they say the frequency of authenticity is the highest frequency you could be on. It's even higher than love. Because it is. When you're being truly authentic, you're generating so much life force. You're healing things you didn't even remember happened because you're not even the experience itself. You aren't the bad experience that was traumatic. So you don't even have to hold trauma, that red overlay like of trauma that's in your energy field or your body anymore. You don't have to hold that. You're on a way higher frequency, so naturally it would fall off and then your core self would radiate and overpower it. And then when I come across little bits of information, it all comes full circle. I heard someone say the other day, you can't compete with someone who is being authentic or someone who's just having fun. Someone who's not trying to like gain or win or outdo you. Someone who's just being authentic isn't even playing by your official rules that everyone else is playing by. So they can't be predicted entirely. They can't be controlled. They can't be mind controlled. You don't know where they're going to be or what they're going to do because they're moving on their natural soul impulse. So there is no competition. You can't make them lose. And no threat of punishment or you being able to traumatize them, or it's not going to work because they're not even holding responsibility or shame for the energy frequency of trauma. It's been transmuted. I think all miraculous healing and sudden healing from lifelong chronic issues or addictions comes from someone being safe enough or being given permission, but they have to ultimately give themselves permission to be authentic again without fear of punishment or further harm. Like my client, which I'm about to go in and see, she's been an alcoholic for a lot of her life and she's had a very traumatic life. But she has dementia now, so she's kind of thinking about her immediate life. And she's been my client for about, since May, maybe 10 months. She's had an alcohol addiction for a lot of her life. And I just now started noticing in December, about 3 months ago, she hasn't drinking at all. And she's safe to be herself. I know before I started working with her, I'm not taking responsibility for what happened. I feel like I just kind of semi-facilitated an experience she was trying to have anyway. She was so scared because they were gossiping about her here and they were competing with her here. And people were putting her name in the anonymous thing, trying to get her evicted or something. Because old women can be very competitive if they're living in this, literally like what I've just been talking about. And then she would drink all the time out of fear of what other women would think about her. I feel like something kind of healed in her. And she feels like if she bees herself, that no one's going to turn on her and make her lose everything. She still kind of does talk shit about women on the TV and stuff, but she stopped drinking. No alcohol at all for 3 months, and she did it by herself. I didn't tell her to stop. I stopped buying her alcohol because I don't want to do all that because I don't even drink. But she stopped by herself. She knows how to get it on her phone, but she stopped. And I think so when I visualize this stuff, there's like the core self, the core ability to generate life and healing and just very powerful energy. Like we're all our own source. And then there's an overlay of trauma and then an overlay of shame and then a lot of structures that we will create in our lives to quote unquote protect us, but actually just protects the shame and the trauma and blocks our life force from knowing we know how to heal ourselves, but it blocks the expression of it. And then we reach for all these addictions around us because we think that we don't have life force because it's being inhibited. But we think it's just not there. I kind of wonder, I think she's 77 and she's not addicted to alcohol anymore. But yeah, I actually have to go in there.